everyone, and welcome. My name's Dan, Dragonfly9078, and this is the first in a series of videos where I talk about the fan-made cards that are included in Elementals of Harmony. Uh, if you have not watched my Elementals of Harmony video, the first one, or if you have not read the story, then you're probably wondering what I'm talking about. So, Elementals of Harmony is my current fanfiction reading project. It is a crossover between My Little Pony Friendship is Magic and Magic the Gathering, two things that I really enjoy, so that's what I'm reading. But the point of these videos is sorry about that. The point of these videos is that at the end of each chapter, there is a card or two cards, or in one case, 5 cards, that they're Magic the Gathering cards, but they're made up. Fan of Most Everything, the author of the story, made them up and put them in the story. And each card either references something that happened in that chapter, or is something that is in that chapter, or just is something related to that story as a whole. So, those are what I'm going to be doing in these videos. So, the first one I'm going to talk about is this, Ditzy Doo, Perception Adept. This is Ditzy Doo, or as some of you know her, Derpy Hooves, as a planeswalker. And I will not hesitate to say... Sorry, I just had dinner, so I'm a bit stuffed, I guess. Derpy as a planeswalker is what drew me to this story. Like, I read the synopsis of it on, I think it was TV Tropes, and it said, Ditzy Doo, planeswalker, and I was there. But I can honestly say I didn't expect her to be blue. I don't really know what I expected her to be, but like the common perception of her is as a Ditz, as kind of this, I don't know, airheaded, bubbly person. So I guess I was thinking white, maybe green. But I didn't really have an expectation. I just didn't really expect it to be blue. But she's blue, and looking at her abilities, she's a pretty blue planeswalker, and it really fits with the story. So I'm just gonna go over the card, tell you what I think about it. She's a planeswalker, of course. She costs 1 colorless and 2 blue to cast. She comes into play with 3 loyalty counters. Her first ability adds 2 loyalty counters and allows you to look at the top card of each library. Yours, your opponent's, any of your other opponents, just all libraries you can look at. So it really does get better in multiplayer if there's like a lot of people, because then you're getting a lot of cards looking at. But before I go too far into this card, I will say my impression of this card as a whole is that she almost seems designed for a blue counterspell deck, because 2 of her abilities deal with having information on what is coming and what your opponents can do, and her other one is just protection. So her first ability is good. I like it. Look at the top card of each library. You can plan your strategy. You can see what your opponent might be planning, so you can plan around their plans. Yeah. Okay, so that's always good for blue. Good for blue counterspelling. I had a look around, tried to find cards that roughly corresponded to her abilities, just to see kind of how much value is in each one. And the closest match I found for her first ability, maybe not the closest match, but the one I'm using, is this one, Rootwater Mystic. It's an older card that lets you pay 2 mana to look at the top card of a single player's library. So, obviously, Ditzy Doo has a bit more value the more players there are, because it doesn't cost more mana for each player. But Rootwater Mystic can do it at instant speed, which is a really big drawback to Ditzy's abilities. So there's that. I do like her first ability though. My only problem with it is that it doesn't really do anything to protect her other than make her have 5 loyalty counters, which, helps. But on the whole, I don't know, you have Tamio the Moon Sage tapping something down. Same with a Johnny Vengeant. But her first ability brings to mind more Jace the Mind Sculptor, because he lets you look at the top card of an opponent's library and then move it somewhere else. She doesn't let you move it, but she does let you look at your own card too. So it's kind of a trade-off, although I definitely don't expect her to be quite at the level of Jace the Mind Sculptor. That would be utterly ridiculous. Yeah. Her -2. This is her protection ability. Her -2 gives all of your creatures hexproof until your next turn. I like the ability. I like the idea of the ability, but really what holds this ability back, in my opinion, is she is a planeswalker, so it does happen at sorcery speed. I looked, I couldn't find any really sorceries that gave your creatures hexproof. Anything that I saw that gave hexproof, and I might be wrong, I might be totally wrong, and if I am, show me a card that proves me wrong, I will happily say I was wrong. But as far as I could find, anything that gave your creatures hexproof or gave your stuff hexproof, that wasn't like a creature or an enchantment or whatever, was an instant. So temporary hexproof is generally an instant because you can use it to react to things. They can say, oh, I use Doomblade, and you say, ha, no, hexproof, doesn't work. And having it as a sorcery, you have to cast it on your turn. That it turns it into less of a counter and more of a delaying tactic, which has its uses, but can be a bit of an issue. The saving grace to it is that it does last through your turn and through your opponent's turn, and again, in like a big multiplayer game, that could be really good, because it does say until your next turn. So if you have like 6 people, they have hexproof through 6 turns. So that actually is good, and I am now realizing as I record this video that she actually shines a lot more in multiplayer than in a single one-on-one duel, because her abilities scale with players. So I like it, sort of. If you know that they have something and you just need to delay a bit to force some damage through or something, then it's good. Like if you know they have a what is it, Arrows of Justice or something that deals 4 damage to target attacking creature, I think. Then you can say, all my stuff is hexproof. I attack for the win. But on the whole, it suffers a bit for not being instant speed. The card I'm comparing it to is this, Mizium Skin. The other closest one I could find, there weren't many instants that I could find that gave hexproof. They all last until end of turn, and most of them either gave like one thing hexproof or gave too many things hexproof. Like the other closest one I could find was Simic Charm, and that gives all of your permanents hexproof, which is much better. Mizium Skin, if you overload it for 2 mana, then all of your stuff gets hexproof, and they also get a small toughness boost. So it is slightly different. But I like Mizium Skin as a card. Really, the biggest thing that makes me not like her -2 ability is the not instant speed. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Now her ultimate actually doesn't suffer for only being sorcery speed. I like her ultimate, and again, it scales in multiplayer. Her ultimate is a -7, so most conservative estimates, or not conservative, it's I don't want to say most optimistic, I don't want to say most conservative. fastest, let's say. Um, Estimates are she comes out on turn 3, assuming no acceleration or anything. She comes out on turn 3, uses her +2. Turn 4, she uses her +2. Turn 5, you get her ultimate. And she vanishes. But it's an emblem, and it's a really good blue emblem. You get an emblem with, you can look at the top card of your library at any time, which by itself, honestly, is kind of fantastic. I mean, it can be iffy, but if you're trying to plan out what's going to happen and you have access to what you're going to do next, or what you will have the ability to do next, that's not insignificant. But the other bit is all of your opponents play with their hands revealed. So you have access to everything they have in their hand. You know what they can do and what they can't do. And that is invaluable. There is another card like it called Telepathy that just makes your opponents play with their hands revealed, which is good, but it can be destroyed, I guess, is the shortest thing answer to why. I don't know. I actually like Telepathy. But this is an emblem, so for the rest of the game, you can look at your top card and you can look at your opponent's hands. That's not insignificant. So she is not a game-winning planeswalker, I would say. She's definitely no Jace the Mind Sculptor. She's not a Johnny Vengeance destroying all of your opponent's lands. She's not Elspeth. You get all of your stuff is indestructible, so there's it's going to be very difficult to beat you. No, she's more subtle. She's a blue planeswalker that gives you information. That's what she does, and honestly, I think she does it well. I'd have to playtest a deck with her, but I think she actually does it pretty well. So, on the whole, I like her. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I like Ditzy Doo Perception Adept. It's a decent card. It kind of has a niche, but it can support other things too. And the 2 blue in its casting cost does restrict it a bit more towards blue decks. But that's probably actually where she'll be most appreciated. So, on the whole, I would say it's a decently designed card, and I would be interested in playing with it. Another thing that's really cool about it is from a flavor standpoint. Because at this point in the story, Ditzy is basically just trying to figure out what's happening. And having her abilities be focused on gathering information is really cool from that perspective, I think. Because she's trying to gather information about what's going on. In the first chapter, she summons a mole drifter to figure out what's going on. And I think having her card reflect that is really cool, since these cards do go along with or were designed to follow along with the story. She's kind of not all there yet. She is still kind of shaky, still trying to figure out what happened. So that has a bit that explains why her abilities aren't huge game-winning things. And in fact, in a later chapter, there is another version of her Planeswalker card where it does seem like she has regained her full powers. She's not like out of practice after years of living in Ponyville. She like really gets into the swing of things, and that card will be interesting when I talk about it. But I'm not going to talk about it yet because we're not there yet. So it's a good card, and it really does reflect the flavor of the story. So I really, really do think this is a well-designed card. If you don't agree with me, or even if you do, or if you have no opinion whatsoever, let me know. If you know of a card that contradicts anything that I said, like a better analog for her +2 or her everything as hexproof or whatever, or if you just have an opinion on the card, let me know. Put it in the comments. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say. So, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys later.